In this lesson, you'll learn about the foundation of the interior practice, the journey from carcass to completion, the project process, your tools for the training. Your facilitator is Architect David Oguntuache. So listen attentively, he'll communicate effectively, and will benefit mutually.
Manipulate the lines, get the space functional, make the strong feel divine. This is interior design.
All right, so this is a training in interior design and decoration. The first thing to note is that there are actually two different things in the same field. So together we can refer to them as the interior practice. And when we talk about the interior practice, that covers both interior design and interior decoration. So there's a point we will get to where we will, actually differentiate between both. But this course covers both of them. This course is both interior design and interior decoration. This course is supposed to empower you with the skills, the knowledge, the ability, for practicing interior design and decoration. So everything about interior design and decoration, which I'll just call the interior practice, is built on three foundations, meaning you are building your skill, your ability in these three areas. And what are the three areas? Design, presentation, and execution. Okay, so there's the design phase, there's the presentation phase, there's the execution phase. And the value or the milestones you are supposed to get from this training is for you to be able to design, for you to be able to present your design, and for you to be able to execute or implement your design. Now, those out there that will currently call, the top interior designers in the world, or saying this particular person is a good interior designer, what that simply means is that the person is good at design, the person is good at presentation, and the person is also good or has the knowledge to implement, what has been designed. Now, these are three key areas, different areas we have to, build our ability in each one of them separately. So let's start with the first one. Let's start with design. What is design? Design is simply being able to come up with sound ideas and concepts that satisfies the client and project conditions. So being able to hear a client's need and being able to evaluate the space. Of course, our primary resource as interior designers is space. Everything we do is done in a space. So to be able to evaluate the space and also get, information from the client and come up with a proposal that will fit into that space and also meet the client's need. That is what design ability is. So everything the client wants to be able to do in that space, everything the client wants to achieve in that space, you are able to come up with a proposal that, takes care of all of that. That is what it means to be able to design. Okay, so that is the very first core skill that any person practice. Of course, that's the basis. That's why you're called interior designer. Okay, it means that you can design interiors. So that's the first part. Now we go to the second part, and the second part is presentation. Presentation. If I want to translate this to local parlance, is like what we call packaging. When we are talking of packaging, we are just talking of something being presentable. Okay, making sure that what people interact with on the outside is presentable. So in interior design, it's still more or less the same thing. And what's presentation? it is the ability to make other people, especially your clients, of course, because that's the most important person to you as an interior designer, the ability to make other people appreciate the value of your design proposal, the ability to, so which means it is a skill on its own. It's one thing to be a good designer, okay? But then design by itself is intangible. It's not something that you can touch, you can feel. So design is something that nobody can really see it. You have to find a way of helping other people understand it, number one, and also appreciate it, number two. So that's where presentation comes in. And that is okay. So, like I do say, design design is your most important skill. Design is your most important skill. But presentation is your most powerful skill. Okay. All right, let's take our first exercise. Now you're going to send me your response via Zoom chat. So let's begin to use that. Okay, so we have two interior designers. There's interior designer A and there's interior designer B. So let's say both of them are actually, trying to get the same. There are two options to a client. So a client has a job and they just want to get, two different proposals for that same job. Now, interior designer A has good design and simple presentation. Interior designer B has simple design and good presentation. Now, I want you to send me your thoughts via Zoom chat. Just tell me A or B. Who do you think is more likely? Who do you think has the better chances to get the job between these two people, A or B? So a client has received proposals from interior designer A and interior designer B. Which one of them do you think is in a better position to actually get the job? So send me your response via Zoom chat. Okay, Damilola, I've gotten your answer. Yinka, I've gotten your answer. Rachel, I've gotten your answer. Silas, can you see the chat? You were not here yesterday. No, you are writing. Can you see the chat? Anyway, we'll deal with that later. Okay, so all three of you have provided me with the same answer. You have all said B, and that's actually very correct. Okay, Silas, I've gotten your response to B. Yeah, so that's actually very correct because B is what will impress. B will impress the clients. A, the clients won't really be able to understand good design. So it is how you express good design that matters. It's like human beings normally. You have people that will say that "Ah, I have something in my mind, but I just don't know how to say it well." Okay, so that's the thing. You're not able to communicate that which is in your mind. So it's the same thing with design. You need good presentation skills. And when we talk about presentation skills can be verbal and it can be illustrative. So you have to, the first part is you have to be able to talk in such a way that your talk is communicating value. Okay, you have to be able to, talk about your design in such a way that your talk will make your client interested in your design. So we're going to be talking more on that. Then illustrative, sometimes you are sketching. You also have to be able to sketch, communicate your design. It can be to an artisan, it can be to a client, but you also have to put your ideas, to paper with illustration, which is also part of what we're going to be learning. So I've said presentation is the ability to make other people, especially your clients, appreciate the value of your design proposal. And then the third core skill, of interior design is execution. So right now, for number 1 and 2, there's still no change to the space yet. It is all just preparation and thought. But being able to now implement the design. So we say here that execution is the ability to bring your design to life through the management of your vendors, artisans, and subcontractors. Okay, so it's possible for us to really understand, the implication of this. It is possible that you have a good design. It is also possible that you have a good presentation. But if your execution is poor, it spoils everything. It's possible to have a poor design, poor presentation. If your execution is good, I think that's the next best thing. But the important thing is, in fact, the two important things here out of these three, the two that are actually most important is to have a good design and to have good execution. Okay, those are the two major things. But again, to be a complete interior designer, to be a professional, to be in a position where you can really make it out there in the jungle of the design industry, you need to have all of these three skills well. You need to be a good designer, you need to be good in presenting your design, and you also need to know how to execute your projects. Okay. Now, under execution, we have said that it is the ability to bring your design to life through the management of your vendors, artisans, and subcontractors. So in talking about execution, we've mentioned three key actors: vendors, artisans, and subcontractors. Now, I want to ask, can anybody tell us about any of these three people? Who are vendors, who are artisans, and who are subcontractors? Just one. Can you tell us about who a vendor is, who an artisan is, or who a subcontractor is to you as an interior designer? So who is my vendor, who is my artisan, and who is my subcontractor?
Okay, the vendor is the person you're probably buying your tiles from or your doors from.
Okay, so basically your materials.
Yes, please.
Your materials. So all the materials you'll be using for your jobs and your projects, the people you get them from are your vendors, not your customer. Those are my customer. I have a customer. No, it's actually a misuse of language. Okay, so they are your vendors. They're your vendors. Edidi, you wanted to talk, but again, learn the rules of the class. You need to put up your hand when you want to speak. Okay, Yinka, please.
Yeah, I'm here. Good evening,
Okay.
class.
Yeah, good evening.
The artisans are the people that work for you. Like you get your tiles from the vendors, and the artisans are the people that install them.
Okay. So thank you very much. So they are the people that actually do the end installation. They're the ones that do the
Yeah.
final work. Okay. So we've identified vendors, we've identified artisans, anybody with subcontractor, apart from those who have spoken. Who is a subcontractor to you as an interior designer? Rachel. Yeah, Rachel.
All right. Good evening, sir.
Good evening, Ma.
Yeah, thank you. So my understanding Yeah, an interior decorator work is going to be like is a contract.
Okay.
You understand? Full project. And when you come to that, you may not be able to undo every aspect of it.
Okay.
You understand? So a subcontractor is someone that takes parts of that contract.
Okay.
To bring.
Okay. All right, Rachel. Didi, you turned on your mic now.
Question, yes, sir.
Yeah, noted, Rachel.
Yeah, giving part of the job to a professional.
Yeah, we got that. We got
Yes,
that.
sir.
Thank you very much. So all these three parties together, they are referred to as your project team. So your project team. Rachel, you can put down your hand. Okay. So when we talk about your project team as an interior designer, you're talking about these people. You're talking about your vendors, artisans, and subcontractors. Now, before we leave the issue of subcontractors, why do we need subcontractors? Rachel actually mentioned one when she was talking. Sometimes the volume of work in your hands is too much for you to do. So you just want to give a portion of it to somebody to save your stress and to save your time. And in some cases, you might need to get something done that you're not really familiar with, meaning you don't know where to get the materials from. You don't even know where to get the artisans who do those things from, but you just know a company that is into it. It can be a particular special wall finish, and you just know that this company is into it, but you don't even know how to get it done. So in that case, you'll be dealing with you'll be dealing with a subcontractor. Now let's use a POP ceiling project. Let's say I want to do POP ceiling in a space. So I have two options. I can get an artisan who is into POP, who does POP ceilings. I can get that artisan, and then we look at the space, and the artisan tells me, okay, these are the materials I need, and then I go and buy the materials. So I go and buy all the materials that are needed, and then I give it to the artisan, and then the artisan gets the ceiling done. That's one way of doing it. Another way of doing it is to now walk through a subcontractor. So that subcontractor will be the one to go and get the materials, also be the one to get the artisans that will get. So mine is just to make funds available, and it is the subcontractor's work to, get the job done. So in that case, I'm dealing with a subcontractor. All right, so we've taken care of this. So moving on, all of the work of an interior designer begins at this stage of a building process. Of course, our work as interior designer is a phase in the entire building process. It started with the architect coming up with the design of the building. Then, it went on to engineers, the structural engineer, the M&E engineer to provide, the building services, the structural engineer to make sure this building stands and it doesn't fall on somebody's head. And then you have other professionals that come into play. So it gets to a point where the baton is now being passed on to the interior designer, and it's now the interior designer stage to show himself or herself. So this phase where the interior design process begins is what we call the building carcass or the shell. We can call it the building carcass or the shell. So a shell just means that all of the structural components of the building are in place. So the structural walls, which means the blockwork, like you can see here, the blockwork is in place. The structural ceiling is in place. Also, the what we call the subfloor, which is the structural floor, is also in place. So it is just waiting for you as the interior designer to apply the finishes. So once again, we refer to a space in this state as the shell. Okay, this is the shell. And we've said that it is when the structural components of the space are in place. And this is the starting point for the interior design process. So everything that happens everything that happens from here forward is interior design and decoration. Everything between this point to the finished space is what interior design and decoration is. So which means if you are an interior designer, you should be able to come into a project in this stage and take it to completion. Now, I'm saying that because as we get to learn, some of you, your understanding of interior design and decoration is smaller than what it actually is. For some of us, maybe it is bigger than what it is actually is. But the point of the training and the point of this place we are starting from is for us to have a uniform understanding of what the practice of interior design is. So, which means that a client should be able to hand over a space to you in this state, and then you take it to completion. You can turn a carcass or a shell into something like this. So once again, for emphasis, everything that happened to transform that carcass or that shell into what you see here is interior design and decoration. Now, can we list them? What are the transformations that happen? What are the things that, happened to turn that shell into this finished space? Can we list them? Don't forget, put up your hand if you want to say something. So can we list them? What are the things that happen to turn? Yes, Damilola.
Window treatment.
The window treatment. Thank you. Rachel.
We have the POP design.
So the ceiling.
That's the ceiling.
The ceiling.
Yes, sir.
Okay, so we've mentioned Didi. Yes.
I want to talk about the painting.
Okay, so the wall finishes. That's what we call it, the
Yes,
wall finish.
sir.
So in this picture, we have about 3 different wall finishes. So we're just going to group everything as wall finishes. Okay, yeah, Dami.
Flooring.
The flooring. So we've mentioned floor, we've mentioned wall, we've mentioned ceiling, we've mentioned window treatment. What else?
Okay, so we have tiling.
Okay, which is the flooring. That has been mentioned, the flooring. Okay, Rachel.
Okay.
The lighting.
The lighting, excellent. The lighting. Now, all of these things we are saying, they have vast options that we should learn in interior design. So interior design is like cooking, just using different options of all of these things we are mentioning. Okay, yes, lighting. We have like 2 more things. Okay, Didi, do you want to speak again? You want to say something else?
Yes, sir.
Yes.
I want to talk about the structure of the bed. It was not like before.
The what?
The structure of the bed, the way it was being put, it was not like before.
Okay, so you mentioned bed. Let's just take that. Furniture. Okay, so furniture. So there's one more thing. So we've talked about wall finishes, flooring, ceiling, lighting, window treatments. There's one more thing.
The painting.
Well, that's wall finishing. Somebody has mentioned that already. Silas.
Could that be the blinds?
Somebody has mentioned window treatment. But again, we are learning presentation. So let me quickly say something for the whole class. When you are answering, don't inject uncertainty. Okay, Silas. So don't say, could that be? It doesn't matter if you are wrong. Just say what you think. Do you understand? We are learning presentation,
That's
and
right.
one strong part of presentation is to exude confidence. Don't seem uncertain, even if you are not certain, but don't let it show. So when you're answering questions, don't just say
That
it.
makes
If
sense,
you're
sir.
wrong, you'll be corrected. All right, Dami.
So now you corrected. I was going to say, could that be?
Well, don't say could that be?
Space management, like the partition in space management,
Okay.
or
Well,
floor arrangement.
well, yes, that precedes all of these things we are talking about, but that's not what
You're looking for.
we are talking. There's something. Okay, so not to waste time, it's decoration. or accessories. We can just call them accessories.
Okay, accessory.
Okay. So all of these here, this thing on the wall. So it is all of these things that have turned the shell into this finished space. So being an interior designer just means that you have an understanding of the variety of options to explore in all of these several areas we've talked about. And like you see here, the training will cover a lot of all those things you've mentioned, and even some of the things you haven't mentioned yet. So this is the course outline. Again, I believe most of us would have gone through the prospectus. You would have seen what we're going to be doing in this training. So I'll just quickly run through them. So the first course is going to be design intelligence. There we're going to learn about how you think about, design is basically about organized thinking. Any good design has, intelligence behind it. So how do we think as designers? That's what design intelligence is about. Then we talk about communication and technical skills. You communicate with different groups, you communicate with clients, you communicate with your artisans, and you communicate with space. So the skill to be able to properly and effectively communicate with these groups is what will be covered there. Then we have the design studio. That's where we're going to be doing our space planning projects, for different briefs, drawing and all those things, learning about measurements, learning how to use the measuring tape and all that. So we also talk about color consultancy. That's another course. We learn about color because that's one of the most powerful tools of interior decoration. We learn about finishes, just like I said, this image we looked at before had about 3 or 4 different finishes. So we learn about the different things we can do with our floors, our walls, and our ceilings. Then we get to quantifying and quoting. How can we, first of all, determine the quantity of materials we need for the different surfaces in our spaces? And then how do we present a quote? Your quote is part of your presentation. There's a way you code for a job that will give the impression that this is just a roadside interior designer. But you also have to exude professionalism in the way you quote as well. Then we deal with furniture, the different furniture that makes our designs functional. We look at lighting. How do we deal with lighting as interior designers? We look at modern bathroom designs. We look at window coverings. We look at professional project management and professional practice. And then the last course will be interior design, business, and marketing. Okay. Then there's the optional part of the training. We actually have 2 optional parts of the training. We have the visualization, being able to create your designs with your computer. If you have a laptop, you can use that to create your designs. It helps your own design process, and then it also helps you give the client an idea of what you plan to achieve in the space. Okay, so talking about a carcass or a shell, we said it is all about a space being in a structural state. Now, you talk about the noggin. The noggin is one type of structural ceiling, so we'll talk about all of that on that ceiling. Currently, the wall is unplastered. Then we have a concrete subfloor. These are things we're going to learn about properly as we move on. Now, interior design is also subject to styles. We're going to be talking about the styles of interior design. It's like fashion sense. Okay, this is what we call a classic space or a traditional space. There are certain features that make it that, and there are certain people it will appeal to. This is what we call a minimalist space. And so we're going to learn about the different characteristics of all of these styles. This is contemporary, you have modern, you have rustic, and then sometimes you're not restricted to a particular style, but you are exploring different options, which is like what you see in this space. Now we also have this breakdown of the steps that will take you from the carcass to the finished space. The first thing that happened is that the client decided to contact an interior designer. Then the interior designer surveys the space, takes the client's brief, develops a design concept based on that brief, costs the design, presents the design and the cost to the client, gets the client's approval, puts together a team of artisans and subcontractors relevant to the design, makes relevant purchases from vendors, and then supervises the execution of the project. So this is simply a breakdown of the steps you are taking from the carcass to the finished state. And the reason why we have this breakdown is so that you know what the ability you need to have to be able to cut it as an interior designer. Okay, so the lesson for you there is the importance of marketing. The importance of marketing, putting your business out there such that if a client out there right now is looking for an interior designer, what have you put out there? What have you done to increase the likelihood or increase the chances that such a client is going to find you? Then the interior designer surveys the space. So space surveying to the interior designer is like what a fashion designer does whenever they want to produce a dress for you. The first thing is that they would have to take your measurements, take the measurements of your body to make sure that whatever dress they are producing fits you. So it's the same thing as an interior designer. Your primary resource is space. That's what you do. You transform spaces. That's a summary of your work. You transform spaces. So for whatever space you're going to be working on, you need the ability to be able to get in there and capture the details of the space. And when we talk about the details, first of all, you capture the form, meaning the shape of the space, the types of openings that are there in the space, and their location and all that. So you need to be able to sketch the layout, that's capturing the form, and also take the measurements. So that's what space surveying is. That's part of what we're going to be taught. So the next thing is the interior designer surveys the space. And then number 3, the interior designer takes the client's brief. A client's brief is simply details about the client's preferences with regards to the project. Design is not a one-size-fits-all thing, and like we commonly say, one man's meat is another man's poison. We all have different tastes in terms of food, fashion, and all. So it's the same thing with interior design. When you are creating a space for a client, it's important that you have an understanding of, that client's preferences so that you can tailor your proposal to such preferences. Now, once you've been able to get the brief, then the interior designer develops a design concept based on the brief. The interior designer develops a design concept based on the brief. So based on what you've gotten for the client, you come up with your proposal that will, fit the client's expectations. Then number 5, the interior designer costs the design. So what's going to be the cost implication of your proposal? You want to capture that properly. And, we have a course on that as well, quantifying costing and quoting. And then you get to number 6, the interior designer presents the design and cost to the clients. Now, it is intentional that we have not put here that the interior designer presents the design to the clients as number 6. Then number 7, the interior designer presents the cost to the client. So it's intentional that we have not separated that. Especially with our project environments in Nigeria here, whenever you are sending your design proposal, make sure the cost implication accompanies it. The reason is so that right from the get-go, the client can have an idea of the cost implication of what they are discussing. Now, sometimes people make this mistake of just talking with the client about the design, sending proposals, making adjustments, creating different options and all that. And then after several weeks of discussion, you now get to costing, and then the client is completely put away by the cost implication of what you're proposing. Now, the implication of that is that you would have wasted a lot of your time, a lot of your effort and resources. So if that happens a whole lot, it's sweet to pick this, oh, I want this, I want that, I like this, I like that. But by the time we now understand what the cost implication is, we then get cold feet. So that's why once you are sending your proposal to the client, You're sending details about your design proposal and also the cost implication. Always make sure they go together. And so you and your clients will, keep doing a back and forth until both of you can agree on the design and the cost implication of that design. So at that point, you as the interior designer gets the client's approval. So the interior designer gets the client's approval. Then we get to number 8. After you've gotten your client's approval, you are expected to put together, so the interior designer puts together a team of artisans and subcontractors relevant to the design. All the people that will be relevant to whatever the scope of the project is, you get them together to help you implement. And then number 9, the interior designer makes the relevant purchases. The interior designer makes the relevant purchases. And who are you purchasing from? You're purchasing from your vendor. Okay. And then number 10, your men are on site, your materials are on site. The interior designer then supervises the execution of the project. Okay. Then finally, what do we need to get for this training? There are 5 items listed that you need to get. 1, the A4 folder. Number 2, a set of poster colors, set of 6, not 12, just a set of 6. So you use that for your color practicals. Markers, 4 colors, red, blue, black, and green. Then a measuring tape, usually 7.5, okay, 7.5 meter measuring tape, and then an A4 sketch pad.
We hope you enjoyed this introductory course as much as we enjoyed delivering it. If you have questions or comments, feel free to drop it in the comments section.